Hi guys, I'm Kevin. Welcome to my channel. Have you ever wondered about heat exchangers on pots? Are they actually worth it? Today we're going to find out. So the idea with these pots is that there's some extra metal on the integrated pot. It's on the bottom. There's a rim of sort of webbed metal, which is going to capture more heat in theory and transfer that heat to the pot. So same thing with the MSR heat exchanger. It's a copper band that wraps around your pot. It's got these little ridges in it, and the idea is that heat that hits the bottom of your pot from your stove will be channeled up in here. The copper will capture that heat, transfer more heat to your pot. So I'm going to do a series of boil tests to test the efficiency of heat exchangers on pots. The MSR heat exchanger is pretty straightforward because I can use the same pot. All I have to do is remove the heat exchanger. For the Eta Express, the heat exchanger is integrated into the pot, so I'm going to compare that versus a couple of other pots I own. One pot is this simple, I believe it's an MSR aluminum pot, and this Toaks titanium pot. Both are about the same size, so it should be a fairly good comparison. All my boil tests are going to look fairly similar. I'm going to start by weighing my stove with my fuel canister. Then I'm going to put my pot on my stove. I'm going to fill it with water, a standard temperature water, and I'm going to insert a thermometer, put the lid back on, and I'm going to start my stove. I'm going to let that come to a boil. As soon as it does, I'm going to shut this off, remove the pot, and weigh my stove and canister to determine how much fuel I've burned. The first day I started doing these tests was quite windy, so most of my tests were actually done in my garage to be out of the wind. So some fairly interesting results. Both my aluminum pot and my titanium pot boiled 2 cups of water in about 2 minutes. They were very comparable, and they both consumed about 8 grams of fuel to get the job done. The Eta Express was actually a little bit faster, and it consumed only 6 grams of fuel, so it is more efficient. I then, just for kicks, I used an older canister that didn't have much pressure in it, and I did another boil test with the Eta Express, and it took much longer to boil, but it did the job and only consumed 5 grams of fuel. So even more fuel efficiency on a stove that doesn't have as much pressure. The MSR pot results were kind of interesting. With and without the heat exchanger, boiling 2 cups of water consumed 8 grams of fuel. So I didn't see a difference at all with the heat exchanger. I did the same thing as I did with the Eta Express. I took an older canister that didn't have as much pressure in it, and I boiled 2 cups of water with the heat exchanger, and it consumed 7.5 grams. So a slight efficiency there. So I was a bit puzzled by those results because these things are rumored to be pretty good, and they cost about 50 bucks these days. So is it worth it or not? So I went online, asked a few questions in a few discussion groups. Folks said, yeah, when you're doing some winter camping and you're melting snow or boiling a lot of water, that's where you find your efficiencies. So I decided to do a second round of tests, almost filling up this pot with 6 cups of water and repeating those boiling tests. With that much volume, it took a lot longer to boil, but I did start to see an appreciable difference. Without the heat exchanger, I consumed 27.5 grams of fuel, and with the heat exchanger, I consumed 24.5. So a 3 gram savings. So what should I use? The Eta Express pot with an integrated heat exchanger, or my titanium pot that I usually use on most trips? Well, this pot is 130 grams heavier than this pot. So at a 2 gram per boil savings, that's going to be about 65 boils before I save enough fuel to justify bringing this pot. 65 boils is a trip about 20 days long, so I'm probably not going to bring this. This is going to stay my standard pot. So what about the MSR heat exchanger? It weighs 168 grams. So again, unless I'm boiling lots and lots of water, I'm not going to get much of a savings. If I'm boiling this almost full, I'm going to get a 3-gram savings every boil, and it's going to take me 56 boils to make up the weight in fuel that this heat exchanger is. So again, that's a very, very long trip, and it's a very busy trip, boiling lots and lots of water every time. So the heat exchanger is probably not worth bringing, and at the price that it is now, I think it's at least 50 bucks right now, it's probably not worth getting at all. These heat exchangers are a little more efficient. They do save you a bit of fuel, but overall in terms of their weight, they're not really worth it. There's a few other issues as well. This one is very, very bulky, and it's very, very expensive. So I can't say I recommend the MSR heat exchanger. This one, the Eta Express, is a nice little pot. It's not terribly heavy, so if you're not super concerned about weight, not a big deal, but it also has kind of a funny bottom. You're supposed to use it with a stove that rests on this outer lip here, and a lot of stoves just barely, if they have 3 prongs, they just barely catch the lip. So again, something to look for. The instructions say you don't want the stove to fit right inside this little hole here. So guys, leave your comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I know there's a lot of passion for different types of stoves and heat exchangers. I do not have a Jetboil pot, and I know there's a lot of brand loyalty towards Jetboil. People who love Jetboil pots really love Jetboil pots. Unfortunately, I don't have one, so I couldn't do a test. But if I get enough comments and enough interest, maybe I'll go get myself a set of pots and give that a shot. Okay guys, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you watching this video. If you like the channel, consider subscribing, and if you do, hit that bell button so that you get notifications about my upcoming videos. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.